The wrench slipped from my fingers and clattered against the concrete floor of my garage. Not because I was clumsy, I'd been fixing engines for 20 years, but because Aria's voice carried through the thin walls like a confession meant for someone else's ears. He makes me feel alive, Kian. She didn't use his name, didn't need to. I already knew it was Trent Ardell, my best friend since high school, the guy who'd stopped meeting my eyes 3 months ago. The same Trent who'd been finding excuses to visit when I wasn't home, who'd developed a sudden interest in Aria's law practice, who'd started texting me less and her more. I wiped my hands on the shop rag and listened to my fiancée rehearse her breakup speech in our kitchen. The wedding was 6 weeks away. The invitations had been mailed. Her dress hung in our bedroom closet like a white flag of surrender I hadn't seen coming. I never meant for this to happen, she continued, and I could picture her standing by the window practicing her delivery. But I can't marry you feeling this way about someone else. The garage suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker. I'd spent the evening working on Mrs. Patterson's Honda, trying to diagnose a mysterious engine knock, when the real problem was happening 20 feet away in my own house. The irony wasn't lost on me. I could fix everyone else's mechanical failures. But I'd missed the warning signs in my own relationship. I walked to the side door and peered through the gap in the curtains. Aria stood with her back to me, phone pressed to her ear, auburn hair catching the kitchen light. She was talking to someone, probably her sister Mina, rehearsing the words she'd used to dismantle 5 years of my life. I know it's terrible timing, she said, but I can't fake it anymore, not when Trent makes me feel things I've never felt before. My military intelligence training kicked in automatically. Observe, analyze, plan. The same skills that had kept me alive during 2 tours overseas, now focused on the woman who was about to become my enemy. I noticed things I'd overlooked before. The new perfume she'd been wearing, the way she'd started putting her phone face down on tables, the mysterious Tuesday evening client meetings that never appeared on her law firm's calendar. I backed away from the window and returned to the Honda's engine bay. The timing belt looked worn, probably the source of the knocking sound. Simple fix, unlike whatever was about to happen in my kitchen. 20 minutes later, Aria found me under the hood, pretending to work while my mind calculated exit strategies. Kian, we need to talk. I straightened up and faced her. She'd changed into the blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary, the one she claimed was her favorite. Even her breakup had been choreographed. Let me guess, I said, setting down my socket wrench. Trent makes you feel alive. Her face went pale. You heard. Hard not to. You were practicing your speech pretty loudly. She crossed her arms, defensive now instead of apologetic. I wasn't practicing. I was talking to Mina about how to handle this situation. This situation? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that what we're calling it? Don't make this harder than it has to be. Harder than it has to be? I wiped my hands again, buying time to process. Aria, you're breaking up with me 6 weeks before our wedding to run off with my best friend. I'm not sure there's an easy version of this conversation. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other, a tell I'd learned to recognize during poker games with Trent and the guys. She was holding something back. It's not just about Trent, she said finally. We've been growing apart for months. You have to admit that. Growing apart. I repeated her words slowly. Is that what you call it when your fiancé starts coming home at midnight 3 nights a week? Those were legitimate client meetings. With Trent? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. I walked to my workbench and began organizing tools that didn't need organizing. The familiar weight of the wrenches in my hands helped me think clearly. Aria watched me from the doorway, probably expecting tears or anger or some dramatic reaction she could use to justify what she was doing. Instead, I asked, How long? Kian, how long have you been sleeping with my best friend? 3 months. Her voice was barely above a whisper. It started at your birthday party. The birthday party where I'd gotten food poisoning and left early, leaving Aria to clean up with Trent's help. The birthday party where I'd felt strangely tired all evening, despite getting plenty of rest the night before. I see. I set down the wrench and turned to face her. And the wedding? Obviously, we'll need to cancel everything. We? I smiled, and something in my expression made her take a step backward. There's no we anymore, Aria. You made that choice 3 months ago. I'll handle the vendors, the church, all of it. I know this is my fault. Your fault, I nodded thoughtfully. That's interesting phrasing, because I'm starting to think this whole thing was planned a lot more carefully than you're letting on. What do you mean? I mean, Trent's been asking a lot of questions about my schedule lately, about my morning runs, my work hours, when I'd be traveling for client consultations. Almost like he needed to know when the coast would be clear. Aria's jaw tightened. You're being paranoid. Am I? Because I'm also remembering how tired I've been feeling lately, how foggy my thinking has been, how I've been questioning myself about things that used to seem obvious. You've been working too hard. Maybe. I picked up another wrench, testing its weight. Or maybe someone's been helping me feel that way. The silence stretched between us like a wire under tension. Aria glanced toward the house, then back at me. I should pack some things, she said finally. Good idea. I'll be out here for another hour or so. Should give you plenty of time. She hesitated in the doorway. Kian, I want you to know that I never meant to hurt you. Sure you did. I returned to the Honda's engine, dismissing her. You just meant to do it more cleanly. After she left, I continued working in the garage until I heard her car pull out of the driveway. Then I went inside and began making phone calls. The first call was to a real estate agent I'd met through work. The second was to the travel agency that had booked our honeymoon. The third was to my bank. By midnight, the house was listed, the tickets were refunded, and I'd transferred half our joint savings into a new account with only my name on it. The other half could stay for Aria to find. I wasn't a thief, just a man who'd learned to plan ahead. My phone buzzed with a text from Trent. Hey man, heard about you and Aria. Want to grab a drink tomorrow and talk? I deleted the message without responding. There was nothing to talk about, and I had too much work to do. The storage unit smelled like cardboard and regret. I loaded the last box of my belongings into the 10 by 10 space I'd rented under my mother's maiden name, then pulled down the metal door and snapped the lock shut. 20 years of accumulated life reduced to a numbered space in a concrete building on the edge of town. My phone had been buzzing constantly for 3 days. Aria, Trent, mutual friends who'd heard about the breakup and wanted to check in. I powered it down and dropped it into a storm drain 6 blocks from the storage facility. The SIM card went into a different drain 2 miles away. The real estate agent called my mother's house that evening with the news I'd been expecting. 3 offers already, she said. All cash, all above asking price. This market is incredible. Take the highest one, I told her. No contingencies, 30-day close. Are you sure? You might want to wait and see if... I'm sure. I signed the paperwork at her office the next morning, then drove to the bank to wire the proceeds to an account I'd opened in Denver. The teller, a young woman with purple hair and kind eyes, processed the transfer without comment, probably saw people fleeing their old lives every day. Moving somewhere warm? She asked, making conversation. Somewhere high, I said. Thin air helps you think clearly. My flight left that afternoon. One-way ticket, paid in cash, no return date. I'd shipped 2 boxes of essentials to a P.O. box in Colorado, using a name that wasn't quite mine. Close enough to pass casual inspection, different enough to disappear into the bureaucratic maze. The plane lifted off just as the sun was setting, and I watched my old city shrink into a grid of lights below. Somewhere down there, Aria was probably discovering that our joint checking account had been cleaned out. Somewhere down there, Trent was probably getting phone calls from mutual friends, asking if he knew where I'd gone. I hoped they enjoyed the mystery. The apartment in Denver was nothing special. 1 bedroom, mountain view, month-to-month lease paid in cash. I'd found it through a classified ad in a local paper, dealt with a landlord who preferred handshakes to credit checks. The kind of place where people minded their own business and asked no questions about your past. I spent the first week establishing a routine. Morning runs in the foothills, afternoons at a used bookstore that needed help with their computer system, evenings cooking simple meals and watching the sun set behind the Rockies. No social media, no dating apps, no attempts to make friends or connections. My mother received a postcard every few weeks, generic mountain scenery with brief messages that could have been written by anyone. Weather is good, staying busy, love you. No return address, mailed from different post offices around the state. The friends from my old life received nothing. It was during my 3rd week in Denver that I discovered the GPS tracker. I'd been checking my car regularly since arriving, another habit from my military days, but this time I found something new. A small magnetic device tucked behind the rear wheel well, the kind you could buy online for tracking teenage drivers or cheating spouses. I pried it loose with a screwdriver and examined it under the apartment's fluorescent kitchen light. Professional grade, real-time tracking, probably cost whoever planted it a few $100s. The magnetic case was clean except for a partial thumbprint on one corner. I knew that thumbprint. Had seen Trent leave it on beer bottles and poker chips and the steering wheel of my car during the countless times I'd let him borrow it over the years. They'd been tracking my movements before Aria's confession. The question was why. I drove the tracker to a long-term parking lot at Denver International Airport and attached it to the undercarriage of a semi-truck with Texas plates. Then I went shopping for a new car, a used Honda Civic, paid for in cash, registered under my new identity. That night, I sat in my apartment and tried to piece together a timeline. 3 months ago, Aria had started her affair with Trent. 3 months ago, Trent had started asking questions about my schedule. 3 months ago, I'd started feeling inexplicably tired and foggy. And sometime in the past month, they'd decided they needed to know my exact location at all times. I pulled out a notebook and started writing down everything I could remember about the past few months. Every conversation, every strange coincidence, every moment when I'd felt like I was missing something obvious. The picture that emerged wasn't pretty. My phone, the new one I'd bought with a Denver area code, rang just after midnight. Unknown number, which usually meant spam, but something made me answer. Kian? The voice was shaky, scared. It's Mina, Aria's sister. I sat up straighter. How did you get this number? I called your mother, told her it was an emergency. She said you'd given her a contact number for emergencies only. What kind of emergency? The kind where I think my sister and your friend were planning to hurt you. The line went quiet, except for the sound of Mina crying softly. I'm listening, I said. Can we meet? I'm in Denver. I drove here to find you. How did you know I was in Denver? Because I've been tracking Trent's phone, and he's been making calls to Denver area codes all week. I think he's trying to find you too. I looked out my apartment window at the empty street below. No unusual cars, no movement in the shadows, but that didn't mean anything. Where do you want to meet? I asked. There's a diner on Colfax Avenue called Murphy's, 24 hours. I'll be in the back booth wearing a red jacket. Give me an hour. I hung up and immediately began packing. Whatever Mina had to tell me, it was serious enough to drive halfway across the country, and if she'd found me, others could too. Time to disappear again. But first, I needed to hear what Aria's sister had discovered. Murphy's Diner looked like it hadn't been updated since the Carter administration. Red vinyl booths, black and white checkered floor, the kind of place where truckers and insomniacs came to drink coffee and avoid their problems. Perfect for a conversation nobody wanted to have. Mina sat in the back corner booth as promised, red jacket zipped up despite the warm evening. She looked like a younger version of Aria. Same auburn hair, same sharp features. But where Aria carried herself with confidence, Mina seemed to be shrinking into the upholstery. I slid into the booth across from her and signaled the waitress for coffee. Mina's hands were wrapped around her mug like she was trying to absorb its warmth. "You look different," she said. "Thinner. Mountain air." I studied her face, looking for tells. "You said something about Aria and Trent planning to hurt me. I overheard them talking 2 weeks ago, at Aria's apartment." Mina's voice was barely above a whisper. "They were laughing about something, about your break lines." The coffee arrived and I took a sip to buy time. "What about my break lines?" "Trent said it would be easy, that there's a hiking trail near your old house with a cliff, that if your brakes failed on that particular curve—" She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. "And you think they were serious?" "I thought they were joking until I found the insurance paperwork." Mina reached into her purse and pulled out a manila folder. She slid it across the table with shaking hands. "Aria changed the beneficiary on your joint life insurance policy 2 weeks before she broke up with you. She forged your signature. If something had happened to you, she would have received $750,000. I opened the folder and examined the documents. The signature looked like mine, close enough to pass casual inspection, but I could see the subtle differences. Aria had practiced, but not quite enough. "There's more," Mina said. "I'm listening." "Aria isn't my full sister." I looked up from the paperwork. "What do you mean?" "Our father had an affair 25 years ago, with Trent's mother. Aria is the result." Mina's hands were shaking now. "Trent and Aria are half-siblings. They've known for years." The diner suddenly felt too warm. I loosened my collar and tried to process what I was hearing. "They're related?" "Half-brother and half-sister. Same father." Mina wiped her eyes with a napkin. "The affair broke up both families. That's why Trent's parents divorced when he was 12. That's why our father left when Aria was 7. And they've been—" I couldn't finish the sentence. "For 3 months, maybe longer." Mina's voice was full of disgust. "I think they planned the whole thing. Meeting through you, becoming friends, gaining your trust. Then seducing Aria, or maybe it was the other way around. I thought about all the family gatherings where Trent and Aria had seemed to get along so well. All the inside jokes I'd attributed to shared humor. All the times they'd disappeared together to get drinks or help with dishes. There's something else," Mina continued, "about why you've been feeling so tired lately." She reached into her purse again and produced a small plastic bag containing white powder. "I found this in Aria's kitchen cabinet, hidden behind the flour. The label says it's a vitamin supplement, but I had it tested." She paused, gathering courage. "It's lithium, low dose, but enough to cause fatigue and mental fog if you take it regularly." She was drugging me? "In your morning coffee. I watched her do it last month when I visited. She said it was a vitamin powder you'd asked her to add to help with stress." The pieces were falling into place now. The unexplained tiredness, the difficulty concentrating, the way I'd started questioning my own judgment about Aria's behavior. She'd been chemically undermining my ability to think clearly while she and Trent planned my elimination. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because what they're doing is wrong, and because—" Mina hesitated. "Because I think they're going to try again." "What do you mean?" "Trent's been asking people about your habits, your routines. He knows you like to run mountain trails. He's been researching Colorado hiking accidents." I finished my coffee and stood up. "Where are you staying?" "A motel on Federal Boulevard, The Pines." "Check out. Tonight. Drive back to wherever you came from and don't contact me again." "But—" "Mina, if what you're telling me is true, then being seen with me puts you in danger. Go home. Forget you found me." She nodded reluctantly and gathered her things. "What are you going to do?" "Disappear better. I left $20 on the table and walked out of the diner without looking back. The parking lot was empty except for my Honda and Mina's car, but I drove a circuitous route back to my apartment anyway, checking for tails. The building was quiet, but something felt wrong. I parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot, staying in the shadows. My apartment window was dark, exactly as I'd left it. But the apartment below mine, which had been vacant since I'd moved in, now had a light on. I circled the building and found a rental car with Colorado plates parked in the alley. Through the rear window, I could see maps of local hiking trails spread across the back seat. Time to go. I climbed the fire escape to my apartment, gathered my essential belongings, and left through the same window. The emergency bag I'd prepared during my first week in Denver contained everything I needed: cash, fake identification, a change of clothes, and a bus ticket to Salt Lake City I'd bought but never used. As I walked away from the building, I could see a figure moving around in the apartment below mine. Too tall to be Aria, too broad to be anyone but Trent. My best friend had followed me halfway across the country to finish what they'd started. But I was done running. The Greyhound station in Salt Lake City smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. I bought a ticket to Bozeman using cash and a driver's license that belonged to someone who looked enough like me to pass inspection. The bus wouldn't leave for 6 hours, which gave me time to think. I found a 24-hour internet cafe near the station and paid for an hour of computer time. The terminal was old and slow, but it connected to the web without requiring personal information. Perfect for what I needed to do. First, I searched for news from my old hometown. The local newspaper's website had a brief mention of my disappearance in the police blotter. Local man reported missing by concerned friends. Vehicle found abandoned at airport. No mention of foul play or suspicious circumstances. Next, I created a new email account using a name that meant nothing to anyone. Then, I composed a message to the one person who might have answers I needed. Mina, this is Kian. If you meant what you said about wanting to help, I need more information. What exactly do you know about Trent and Aria's relationship history? And how long have you known they were related? K. I sent the message to an address I found on Mina's social media profile, then logged out and paid for another hour. The reply came faster than I'd expected. Kian, I've been waiting for you to contact me. There's so much more you need to know. Can you call me? This is too dangerous to put in writing. M. She included a phone number with a Montana area code. I walked to a payphone outside a gas station 6 blocks from the internet cafe and dialed the number. Mina answered on the first ring. Where are you? She asked. Somewhere safe. Tell me what you couldn't say at the diner. The insurance policy isn't the only thing they set up. Aria has been slowly transferring assets out of your joint accounts for months. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger alerts, but it adds up to almost $50,000. Into accounts with Trent's name on them? No, into accounts belonging to a shell company Trent created last year, Mountain Vista Holdings. It's registered in Delaware, but the mailing address is a P.O. box in Denver. I leaned against the payphone booth and watched traffic pass on the street. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that somewhere in the world, people they trusted were planning their destruction. How do you know all this? I asked. Because I work for a forensic accounting firm. When I started getting suspicious about Aria's behavior, I did some digging. The paper trail is extensive. What else did you find? Aria has been researching your military service record, specifically your psychological evaluations and any history of depression or suicidal thoughts. I don't have any history of depression. I know, but she's been building a narrative, saving emails where you mentioned being tired or stressed, screenshot of social media posts where you talked about work being difficult. She's creating a profile of someone who might harm himself. The pieces were clicking into place with horrible clarity. They hadn't just planned to eliminate me, they'd planned to make it look self-inflicted. There's something else, Mina continued, about their relationship. I'm listening. It started when they were teenagers. Before Aria met you, they've been involved on and off for almost 15 years. 15 years? I gripped the phone tighter. But Aria and I have been together for 5 years. She was seeing both of you, the whole time. The gas station parking lot started to spin slightly. I sat down on the curb and focused on breathing. Mina, why are you helping me? What do you get out of this? Aria destroyed our family when the truth about her parentage came out. She blamed everyone except herself and Trent for the consequences of their relationship. My parents divorced. My mother had a nervous breakdown. My father moved across the country to escape the scandal. And you want revenge. I want justice. There's a difference. I thought about that distinction while watching a family load groceries into their SUV. Father, mother, 2 kids, everyone laughing about something. The kind of life I'd thought I was building with Aria. What do you want me to do? I asked. Come back, face them, but do it smart. Come back where? They're planning something for next weekend. Aria told our mother she's taking a trip to Colorado to find closure about your relationship. She's bringing Trent. To Denver? To the mountains outside Denver. She's been researching hiking trails, camping spots, places where accidents happen. They're still planning to eliminate me. They think you're hiding somewhere in Colorado. Trent has been posting on social media about wanting to bring his friend home safely, building a narrative about being concerned for your welfare. I stood up and started walking back toward the bus station. What kind of justice did you have in mind? The kind where they face consequences for what they've done. Legal consequences. The police won't care about a love triangle gone wrong. They'll care about insurance fraud. They'll care about domestic poisoning. They'll care about conspiracy to commit harm. You have evidence of all that? I have some. You have the rest. Together, we have enough. The bus to Bozeman was boarding when I got back to the station. I watched passengers climb aboard, college students, elderly couples, working people traveling to wherever life had taken them next. Mina, I said into the payphone, if I come back, I need guarantees. What kind of guarantees? That you're not setting me up, that this isn't part of some larger plan to finish what they started. How can I prove that to you? Meet me halfway. Literally. There's a truck stop in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Big Mike's Travel Plaza. Tomorrow at noon. Come alone, bring everything you have, and we'll figure out how to end this. And if I don't show up? Then I disappear for good, and your sister wins. I hung up the phone and bought a ticket on the next bus heading south. Time to find out who I could trust. Big Mike's Travel Plaza sat at the intersection of 2 interstate highways, like a concrete island in an ocean of prairie grass. Trucks idled in neat rows while drivers caught a few hours of sleep, and the restaurant served coffee that could wake the unconscious. Perfect neutral territory for a meeting that could go very wrong. I arrived 2 hours early and positioned myself at a corner table with clear sight lines to all entrances. The diner was busy enough to provide cover, but not so crowded that I couldn't spot trouble coming. Mina showed up exactly at noon, carrying a leather briefcase and looking like she hadn't slept in days. She scanned the room until she spotted me, then walked over and sat down without ceremony. You look terrible, I said. Thanks. You look paranoid. I am paranoid. Show me what you brought. She opened the briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Bank records showing the asset transfers, insurance documents with the forged signatures, lab results from the powder analysis, and something new. What's the something new? Pharmacy records. She slid a printout across the table. Aria has been buying lithium supplements from a compounding pharmacy in Denver for 6 months. No prescription, paying cash, using a fake name. I studied the documents while sipping coffee that could strip paint. The paper trail was extensive and damning. More importantly, it was admissible in court. How did you get pharmacy records? I have a friend who works there. She recognized Aria's photo and remembered the transactions because they seemed suspicious. Suspicious how? No one buys lithium supplements in those quantities for legitimate purposes, and Aria specifically asked about dosage levels that would cause cognitive impairment without obvious symptoms. The waitress refilled our coffee cups and asked if we wanted food. I ordered pie I didn't want, just to keep her happy and maintain our cover. "There's more," Mina said after the waitress left. "I know where they're planning to go this weekend." She pulled out a map of Colorado and pointed to an area circled in red ink. Rocky Mountain National Park, specifically a trail called the Longs Peak Summit Route. 14 miles round trip, elevation gain of almost 5,000 feet. Lots of places where someone could have an accident. "How do you know that's where they're going?" "Because Aria asked me to research it for her. Said she was planning a memorial hike to honor your relationship." Mina's voice was bitter. She wanted to know about rescue response times and cell phone coverage. I studied the map. I'd hiked that trail during my first month in Denver. Brutal climb, spectacular views, and plenty of opportunities for someone to disappear permanently. "When are they planning to go?" "This Saturday. They're driving out Friday night, camping at the trailhead, starting the hike at dawn." "And they think I'll be there?" "They think you're hiding somewhere in the area. Trent has been posting on social media about organizing a search party. He's convinced people that you're having some kind of breakdown and might hurt yourself." I leaned back in the booth and considered the situation. Aria and Trent were planning to eliminate me during a hiking trip, probably stage it as an accident or suicide, then collect the insurance money and live happily ever after as half-siblings in love. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. "Help me stop them, legally." "How?" Mina pulled out her phone and showed me a recording app. "I want to get them on tape admitting what they've done. Confession to conspiracy, insurance fraud, domestic poisoning, everything." "And how exactly do you plan to get them to confess?" "By making them think they've won." She outlined her plan while I ate pie that tasted like cardboard. It was risky, complicated, and required perfect timing. It was also the only way to ensure that Aria and Trent faced real consequences for what they'd done. "I'll need backup," I said when she finished explaining. "What kind of backup?" "Law enforcement. Someone who can arrest them after they confess. I have a contact at the FBI, white-collar crime division. She's been looking for a case like this." "Someone you trust?" "Someone who owes me a favor." I finished the pie and signaled for the check. "If this goes wrong, we're both finished. If we don't try, you're finished anyway. They won't stop until you're gone." The waitress brought our bill and I paid in cash. Outside, the Wyoming wind was picking up, blowing dust across the parking lot and making the truck stop flags snap like gunshots. "One more thing," I said as we walked toward our cars. "If this is a setup, if you're working with them, I want you to know that I've prepared for that possibility." "What do you mean?" "I mean I've documented everything I know and sent copies to people who will ask questions if something happens to me. People who won't be satisfied with easy answers." Mina nodded. "Fair enough. But Kian, I'm not your enemy. I want them stopped as much as you do. We'll find out this weekend." I got in my car and drove toward Colorado, checking my mirrors for tails and thinking about all the ways the next few days could go wrong. Behind me, Mina headed east toward her sister's apartment, carrying evidence that could destroy 2 lives or end 1. Either way, the waiting was almost over. The parking area at Longs Peak Trailhead was nearly empty at 5 in the morning. A few serious climbers were already heading up the trail, their headlamps bobbing like fireflies in the pre-dawn darkness. I parked behind a maintenance building where my car wouldn't be visible from the main lot and checked my equipment one final time. Wire transmitter, check. Backup recording device, check. Emergency GPS beacon, check. The FBI agent Mina had contacted, Special Agent Jennifer Walsh, was positioned a quarter mile away with a tactical team, monitoring the radio frequency and ready to move when I gave the signal. Mina's car pulled into the lot at 5:30, followed 10 minutes later by Trent's truck. I watched through binoculars as they unloaded camping gear and began organizing their packs. Aria looked excited, animated in a way I hadn't seen in months. Trent kept checking his phone and scanning the surrounding area. They were expecting me to show up. The question was whether they planned to wait for me or go looking. I gave them a 30-minute head start, then began following their trail. The path was well marked and heavily trafficked, winding through pine forests before climbing above the tree line into alpine terrain. Perfect place for an accident. Thousands of feet of exposure, loose rock, unpredictable weather. The transmitter crackled in my earpiece as I climbed. Base, this is Eagle 1. Subjects are approximately 2 miles ahead, moving slowly. No sign of target awareness. Agent Walsh's voice was calm and professional. Copy, Eagle 1. Maintain distance and wait for confirmation signal. I'd been hiking for 2 hours when I spotted them. They'd stopped at a scenic overlook about halfway to the summit, sitting on a large boulder and sharing what looked like a thermos of coffee. Aria had her phone out, taking selfies with the mountain backdrop. Time to make my entrance. I approached from below, making enough noise to announce my presence without seeming obvious about it. Trent spotted me first, his face cycling through surprise, relief, and something that might have been disappointment. Kian, he called out, standing up and waving. Man, we've been looking everywhere for you. I climbed up to their position, breathing hard from the altitude and exertion. Trent, Aria. Fancy meeting you here. Aria's expression was harder to read. She seemed genuinely happy to see me, but there was something calculating in her eyes. We were so worried, she said, standing up and moving as if to hug me. When you disappeared like that, we thought... You thought what? I kept my distance, pretending to catch my breath. That I might do something stupid? We just wanted to make sure you were okay, Trent said. After everything that happened, we were concerned about your mental state. My mental state. I laughed, making sure the transmitter picked up every word. That's interesting, coming from you two. What do you mean? Aria asked. I mean, I've had some time to think clearly lately. Amazing what happens when you stop drinking coffee that's been tampered with. The silence that followed was broken only by wind whistling through the rocks. Aria and Trent exchanged a glance that confirmed everything I needed to know. I don't know what you're talking about, Aria said finally. Sure you do. Lithium supplements, low dose, just enough to cause fatigue and cognitive impairment. Very clever. Trent took a step closer. Kian, you're not making sense. Maybe we should head back down the mountain, get you some help. Help like you were planning to give me? The kind that involves brake line failures and hiking accidents? You're being paranoid, Aria said, but her voice was shaking now. Am I? Then explain the insurance policy. Explain the forged signatures. Explain why you've been transferring money out of our joint accounts for months. Trent's hand moved toward his backpack. I think you need to calm down. Actually, I think I need answers, starting with how long you two have been planning to eliminate me. Eliminate you? Aria laughed, but it sounded forced. Kian, you're talking crazy. Crazy enough to disappear before you could finish the job? Crazy enough to figure out that you've been working together for months to set up my destruction? The wind was picking up, and clouds were gathering around the peaks above us. Weather in the mountains could change quickly, and we were exposed on the rocky overlook. Okay, Trent said suddenly. You want the truth? Fine. Yes, we've been together. Yes, we plan to end your relationship with Aria. But nobody was trying to hurt you. Just drive me crazy and steal my money. We were trying to make it easier on everyone, Aria said. The lithium was just to help you stay calm during the transition. Transition to what? My funeral? Transition to accepting that our relationship was over, Aria snapped. You were always so possessive, so controlling. We knew you'd never let me go willingly. So you decided to help me let go, permanently. Trent pulled something out of his backpack, not a weapon, but a rope. Climbing rope, the kind used for technical ascents. Here's what's going to happen, he said. You're going to have an accident, a tragic fall during a difficult climb. Aria and I will be devastated witnesses who tried to save you but couldn't. And then you'll comfort each other through the grief, collect the insurance money, live happily ever after as half-siblings in love. Both of them froze. That's right, I continued. I know about your father. I know you're related. I know this whole thing has been a family project from the beginning. Aria's face went white. How did you? Your sister told me. Mina's been keeping track of your activities. She's the one who had the lithium analyzed. She's the one who found the financial records. Mina doesn't know anything, Trent said, but his confidence was wavering. She knows enough. And so do the people she's been talking to. What people? Aria demanded. Federal agents. The kind who investigate insurance fraud and domestic poisoning. The kind who are very interested in conspiracy cases. Trent looked around the overlook, suddenly realizing how exposed they were. You're bluffing. Am I? Then why don't you check your phone? See if you have any missed calls from law enforcement? Aria pulled out her phone and stared at the screen. 3 missed calls. Unknown number. Probably the FBI, I said helpfully. They've been trying to reach you all morning. The rope fell from Trent's hands. This is impossible. We covered our tracks. You covered some of your tracks, but you left enough evidence to convict you both. Bank records, pharmacy receipts, forged documents, GPS tracking devices with your fingerprints. You can't prove anything, Aria said, but she was crying now. I don't have to prove anything. You just confessed to conspiracy, fraud, and attempted elimination, on tape. I tapped the transmitter clipped to my jacket. Say hello to Special Agent Walsh and her tactical team. The sound of helicopters echoed off the mountain peaks, growing louder as they approached our position. Game over, I said. The helicopters materialized out of the morning mist like mechanical vultures, their rotor wash sending loose rocks skittering down the mountainside. Trent grabbed for his backpack, but I was closer and faster, kicking it away from his reach. Don't make this worse than it already is, I shouted over the noise. Aria was backing toward the edge of the overlook, her face a mask of panic and calculation. For a moment, I thought she might actually jump, but self-preservation won out and she raised her hands as the first agents rappelled down from the hovering aircraft. Special Agent Walsh hit the ground running, her tactical team spreading out to secure the area. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with the kind of focused intensity that came from years of hunting white-collar criminals. Kian Marin? She called out. That's me. Agent Walsh, FBI, are you injured? No, but I think these two might need medical attention. They seem to be suffering from a severe case of reality. Walsh's team moved with practiced efficiency, separating Aria and Trent, reading them their rights, securing evidence. I watched from a safe distance as my former fiancée and former best friend were processed like any other criminals. Mr. Marin, Walsh said, approaching with a digital recorder. I need to get your statement while everything is fresh. Here? Unless you'd prefer to do this at the field office in Denver. I looked around at the mountain peaks, the clear morning air, the spot where 2 people I'd trusted had planned to end my life. Here's fine. We found a sheltered spot away from the helicopter noise, and I told the whole story from the beginning. The confession speech I'd overheard, the GPS tracker, the lithium poisoning, the insurance fraud, the family connections I'd never suspected. Walsh took notes and asked clarifying questions, building a case that would hold up in federal court. The recording you made this morning, she said. That's admissible evidence of conspiracy to commit insurance fraud, among other charges. What kind of sentences are we talking about? Federal conspiracy charges carry up to 20 years. Insurance fraud, another 20. The domestic poisoning could be prosecuted as attempted assault. We're looking at serious prison time. I watched the tactical team loading Aria and Trent into the helicopter. They were seated on opposite sides of the aircraft, both staring straight ahead, refusing to look at each other or at me. "What about Mina?" I asked. "Ms. Corrin will likely receive immunity in exchange for her cooperation. She's been invaluable in building this case." "And me?" "You're a victim and a witness. No charges, but we'll need you available for testimony when this goes to trial." The helicopter carrying Aria and Trent lifted off and disappeared toward Denver, leaving the mountains strangely quiet. Walsh's team began packing up their equipment, preparing for their own departure. "One more thing," Walsh said. "The insurance policy they took out on you? The company has already been notified about the fraud. They'll be conducting their own investigation, but the policy is void." "Good to know. Also, the bank accounts they use to hide your money? We've frozen those assets. You should have access to your funds within a few days." I nodded, trying to process the fact that my ordeal was actually over. For months I'd been running, hiding, looking over my shoulder. Now the people who'd been hunting me were in federal custody. "Mr. Marin," Walsh said as her team prepared to leave, "can I give you some advice?" "Sure. Don't disappear again. We know where to find you now and we'll need you for the prosecution. But more than that, running away doesn't solve anything. It just delays the reckoning." "I wasn't running away. I was staying alive." "Fair enough. But now you can start living again." The FBI helicopter took off, leaving me alone on the mountain with my thoughts and the morning sun. I sat on the boulder where Aria and Trent had been drinking coffee an hour earlier, looking out at the peaks stretching to the horizon. My phone buzzed with a text message from Mina. "Saw the news. Are you okay?" I typed back, "Better than okay, thank you." "What happens now?" I thought about that question while watching clouds build over the continental divide. What did happen now? I could go back to my old life, try to rebuild what had been destroyed, or I could start something entirely new. "Now I figure out who I am when I'm not running from someone else's plans," I texted back. "That sounds like a good project." "It is. Want to help?" "I thought you'd never ask." I put the phone away and started the long hike back to the trailhead. Behind me, the mountain peaks stood silent and eternal, witnesses to human drama that would fade into memory while they endured for millennia. But for the first time in months, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I was looking ahead. 6 months later, I sat in a federal courthouse in Denver, watching Aria and Trent enter guilty pleas to conspiracy charges, insurance fraud, and domestic poisoning. They'd taken a plea deal rather than face trial. 15 years for Aria, 12 for Trent, with no possibility of parole before serving at least 8 years each. The judge was a stern woman in her 60s who'd clearly seen enough white-collar crime to last several lifetimes. She read the charges with the kind of clinical detachment that made them sound even worse than they were. The defendants engaged in a systematic conspiracy to defraud insurance companies, poison the victim with controlled substances, and ultimately cause his demise for financial gain, she said. This represents a profound betrayal of trust and a callous disregard for human life. Aria sat at the defendant's table in an orange jumpsuit, her auburn hair pulled back in a regulation ponytail. She looked smaller than I remembered, diminished by months of incarceration and the weight of her choices. When the judge asked if she had anything to say before sentencing, she stood up and faced me directly. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely audible. "I know that doesn't change anything, but I wanted you to know." Trent remained silent when given the same opportunity. He'd aged visibly since his arrest, gray threading through his hair, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. When he was led away in shackles, he didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, Agent Walsh found me on the steps, squinting in the afternoon sunshine. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like I can finally breathe normally." "That's common in cases like this. The victim often doesn't realize how much stress they've been carrying until it's over. What happens to them now? Federal prison, probably medium security facilities in different states. They won't be able to contact each other or continue their relationship. I thought about that. Two people who'd been willing to eliminate someone for love and money, now separated by concrete walls and razor wire. Any regrets? Walsh asked. About what? About how it ended. Some victims feel conflicted when their attackers are sentenced. I considered the question while watching traffic move through downtown Denver. Normal people going about their normal lives, unaware of the drama that had just concluded in the building behind us. No regrets, I said finally. They made their choices. Now they get to live with the consequences. What about you? What's next? I'm starting a new business, security consulting for small companies, helping people protect themselves from the kind of fraud Aria and Trent were running. Sounds appropriate. Mina's helping me set it up. Turns out she's good at more than just forensic accounting. Walsh smiled. I heard you two have been spending time together. We have. Turns out shared trauma can be the foundation for something better, if you handle it right. And if you handle it wrong, you end up like them. I nodded toward the courthouse, destroying everything you touch in pursuit of something that was never real to begin with. Walsh shook my hand and headed back into the building. I walked to my car, the same Honda I'd bought in Denver during my months of hiding, and drove toward the mountains. Mina was waiting at a coffee shop in Golden, reading case files and making notes in her precise handwriting. She looked up when I sat down across from her. How did it go? She asked. 15 and 12. They'll be old when they get out. Good. She closed the file and gave me her full attention. How are you feeling about it? Relieved. Satisfied. Maybe a little sad. Sad? For the people they used to be, before they decided that money and forbidden love were worth destroying lives over. Mina reached across the table and took my hand. You can't save people from themselves. I know, but I can make sure they don't take anyone else down with them. Is that what we're doing with the business? Saving people from themselves? We're helping them see the warning signs, teaching them to recognize when someone they trust is planning to betray them, based on personal experience. The best kind of expertise. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the afternoon crowd filter through the coffee shop. Students from the nearby college, business people grabbing caffeine between meetings, families with children who laughed too loudly and spilled things on the floor. Kian, Mina said eventually, do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't found you in Denver? Every day. And I think they would have succeeded. I was tired, confused, making bad decisions because of the lithium. If you hadn't warned me, I probably would have walked right into their trap. So we saved each other. Something like that. My phone buzzed with a notification, a news alert about the sentencing. The headline read, Local couple sentenced in conspiracy case. No mention of the family connection, the years of deception, the systematic poisoning. Just another crime story in a world full of crime stories. Ready to go home? Mina asked. Yeah, but let's take the long way. We drove into the mountains as the sun set behind the peaks, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The same mountains where Aria and Trent had planned to stage my accident, now transformed into something beautiful and peaceful. Do you think they ever really loved each other? Mina asked as we climbed toward the Continental Divide. I think they loved the idea of getting away with something. The excitement of the secret, the thrill of the conspiracy. But love? Real love doesn't require destroying other people. What does real love require? I thought about that question while navigating the winding mountain road. Trust, honesty, the willingness to build something together instead of tearing down what someone else has built. Sounds like a lot of work. The best things usually are. We reached the summit just as the last light faded from the western sky. Below us, the lights of Denver sparkled like stars scattered across the prairie. Somewhere in that grid of illumination, people were falling in love, getting married, starting families, building lives together. And somewhere in federal facilities hundreds of miles away, two people who'd forgotten how to love anything except their own desires were beginning to understand the true cost of their choices. I pulled Mina closer and watched the stars emerge in the clear mountain air. "No regrets," I said. "None at all?" "Well, maybe one." "What's that?" "I wish I'd figured it out sooner." "The conspiracy?" "No, that you were the one worth trusting all along." She kissed me then, soft and warm against the cold mountain air, and for the first time in years, I felt completely safe. The stars wheeled overhead, indifferent to human drama, marking time in their ancient patterns, while we drove home through the darkness, leaving the past buried in the mountains behind us.